On today's show, we're gonna dive into Detroit Become Human, a video game from 2018 that is surprisingly very up to date, even though it's been 7 years ago. It's an emotional, thought provoking look into what happens when artificial intelligence becomes a little too human. We're gonna explore some major questions it raises, like the game raises. Can AI feel? Should they have rights? And what happens when robots start asking for freedom? I'm Daniel,
And Mateus.
and this is the Human AI Experience. In this episode, we're going to spoil the entire plot and all the gameplay and decision making that we've done by playing Detroit Becoming Human. So, starting from now, if you haven't played the game and you don't want to get spoiled, so stop listening, go play the game, and come back.
So, if you haven't played Detroit Become Human, it is a game that is set in the future where androids look, move, and talk just like humans. They clean houses, they raise kids, they patrol streets, they do everything. And they're part of the daily basis, everyday life, everything. But little by little, some of them, they break their codes and they start like feeling emotions. They start remembering what they're doing and questioning what they're doing. And then it's actually the where everything starts, to become strange or to become nice when the game develops itself. And the game has like three main characters: Kara, Marcus, and Connor. And each one of them, they have their own pathway. There's gonna be a cross pathway in the end of the game. So Kara, she is like a homemade. She takes care of a kid and a house from a guy, and she's kind of a in a abusive environment, let's say, and she wanna protect the little girl. So when she start like breaking the code, when she sees that the little girl is a bit abusive or abused by her dad. So Marcus, he lives with an artist. There is a guy in a wheelchair. So this guy is like kind of showing Marcus little by little a bit of his feelings. So he's always questioning and asking how Marcus sees the paintings that he's doing, and then Marcus started like questioning a lot of stuff. And then suddenly things start to get in a nice way where you have options to break. And then lastly, there's Connor. Connor is the first character that you play. He's actually a police officer. There is an android, and then you start like chasing the deviants or the ones who become conscious. So that's the plot of the game. So he started like questioning himself and stuff like that. So during the whole game. So have you played it, Daniel? The Troy Become Human?
Yes, I did a long time ago. I think when it came out in 2018. Played it on PlayStation, and it was yeah, it was a. I remember back then, it was before ChatGPT, before all this AI revolution that we're living through. It was a really good game, a really interesting story, and then what I really liked is not just the fact that it was this humanoid robots. They look like us. They're start to get conscious or start to become let's say uh, becoming self-aware, and like they put it in the game, they have to break a barrier because they have all their commands and directives of what they can do and what they cannot do. So when they when it's like preventing them in their programming is a physical barrier that they bump into. And this I thought it was really cool. And then they when they break that, they all of a sudden don't have to follow those directives anymore, so they can do different things like killing other people, or you know running away. In this case of Kara, where she runs away, you basically save this little girl from this abusive father. um, yeah, I thought it was quite a fresh, interesting take. And another thing that is really cool about this game is that you every decision you take in the game can lead to different endings, and you can go back and and take different decisions and see what happens based on the decisions you take. So it's a bit interesting because we can trace a parallel with reasoning models today, or the way we interact with the artificial intelligence, that you basically go can go in different ways by just deciding different things.
And I think it's kind of nice because when you are there taking the decisions, you have a small time, to think. So you kind of go instinctively, like choosing an option because you want to make the story go on. And so there's a little bit of pressure of doing decisions, and then it has consequences. It can be like now, or it can be like in the next chapter. So you never know when that will become the reality, or will have like the consequences. So I really like the game, and I think this decision tree kind of reflects what we live in our lives. When we take decisions, when we and even the robot decisions, like the decision to break through, as you were saying. So it's a really nice game. It's a really nice game. The beginning for me was a bit slow, because when you start like this game, then you were doing the dishes and stuff like that, and you kind of don't understand much um, how the game will be. So if you are used to have one character that you do any move that you want, it's not like the game wants you to do in this game. So
Yeah, and you have these three characters, right? It's Marcus, which is the, let's say, the butler for, or actually it's a helper. Like he helps this artist that is in a wheelchair, right? And he learns as well with the artist about his paintings, and as far as I recall. Then you have Connor is designed to help to do police work, so it can. This is something cool because you can analyze a crime scene, and then it highlights things, and you can try to project what happened if somebody came with a baseball bat and try to hit something. You can basically fast backtrack what happened in the scene based on the Connor's scanner. And then you have Kara, right, which is the maid, let's say, that housemaid that goes into this abusive father's household, and where there's this little kid that have been abused by the father, and at some point she becomes conscious and break that barrier and decides to protect the little girl. So there's a lot of different interesting stories, and you follow those three characters through their timelines until they kind of get tangled together at some point in a robot uprising, let's say.
yeah, and I like that the game is kind of escalating somehow. So it started like with a small revolution. So some robots, they just like go out, and then they commit some crimes, and then they're slowly it kind of becomes a revolution of 90% of the robots. So this story, it's really nice because you see how people are reacting to that, and then depending on the decisions that you are doing and you're making, it kind of reflects on how the people are enjoying the revolution and like supporting it, or just like refusing and like creating some more barriers, and more violence, or anything. So it is an interesting way of seeing how your decisions can reflect, in the population. So if they are gonna be nice with you or or just be against you, like in the game. So that's pretty much nice.
So it's interesting that this game is from 2018, and today, in 2025, I think we talked about this in the beginning of the year that this is going to be the humanoid robots year, right? And it started, I think, a little bit last in the end of last year. There was, of course, Elon Musk in the Tesla event promoted the Tesla robot. Then there was two other companies. One company, it's called 1X, that is developing robots for to robots that will be in your home. There will be butlers or robots that will help with the house chores. And there's another company, I think their robots are called Persona. This other company is basically aiming to create robots to assist in construction and car manufacturing. Like I think they already have a deal with Mercedes Benz, for example. So just try to make a parallel between what's happening in the game and then what is the scenario in the game and what is happening this year, right? There's we've seen some of these robots. I think it's still a bit early on, but this Persona robot, there's a video of them. They designed their own LLMs to run these robots now, and there's a video of them looking into a basket full of items, and they need to kind of sort those things out and put it into the fridge or give it to another robot to put it in a basket. This goes in the dishwasher, so they have to take decisions without having been programmed to do that. Hey everyone, we noticed that a lot of people watching on YouTube are not subscribers. So it would help us a lot if you will click on the subscribe button down below. And for those who are listening to this episode, because we're also a podcast and we're everywhere, please leave us a review. It helps a lot to share our content and to multiply the audience. And we really, really appreciate it. It doesn't cost anything, it's free. Please leave us a review. Thank you. The
The question that I always like do, if not talking about conscience itself, but if you mimic emotions or a past life or experiences, is it the same as we? Do you know what I mean? Like, because when we live something, we have a memory about that. So does it make how do you reflect? If you think about it, like if some machine create the consciousness and then it remembers some stuff, or if even though it hasn't lived that, does it does it feel like a consciousness, or is it just like a mimic? How do you? Where is the line? Between consciousness and just like a mimic of something.
that's a philo-
It's a hard question.
it's a philosophical question, right? It's I don't know. It, they certainly remember because they I think they are much better and much accurate, much more accurate than our brain, right? Our human brain. We can't rely that much on our memories if it's been, I don't know, more than 5-10 years ago, right? I think there's a lot of studies in regards to how our memory works, and then because our memory is tied to a lot of feelings, it can change over time, and it's hard to trust that. And I do think this let's say, I don't know if we can compare the state of the robots today and with the ones in the film in the game, right? But I do think that they have a pretty good memory, but I don't think you can say that they can feel unless they have some sensors that give some indication that there's something happened with their limbs and so on. I don't know.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a really hard question. I feel that that's the tricky question. So, if an AI or even a robot, it kind of mimics or have emotions, do they have the same rights as we have? Should we consider it like similar or the same as us?
Is it? I think it's not related to. I don't think it's related to emotions, right? Like, first of all, it's hard for us to under. It's up to our interpretation if they actually feel anything, right? Or if they have any emotions, because they're pretty good at AI or LLMs are pretty good predictive machines, so they can easily mimic what we do. They can speak with emotion, but are they actually, is that real, or is just them trying to guess what guess what we are expecting to get back? So if you speak in a certain way, they maybe are expecting that you're maybe they should mimic that behavior because it you can get more out of it, or they can give you the right answer, or the communication goes better if you're mimicking the other person, right? So that's very tricky. And then I think there's a lot of films that play with that, um, with this particular thing. Ex Machina, for example, from Alex Garland. That's It's a great film. I think it's also very. It's funny how life imitate arts, right? So I think all these advancements in AI, and then we're all becoming turning science fiction into reality. Like if you look at, and that not just for artificial intelligence, but like for example, the iPad is this, you know display that is a tablet. That was it showed up in Star Trek in the 70s, right? Like the same concept of having like a computer that you can hold and then do things. So it's funny how we're trying to, like, our technological advancements are basically imitating art.
Yeah, and in the game, there's this the deviants or the robots. They wanna have the same rights, So they you're exploring us because we do all the the boring part. We don't have we're just slaves. So we do whatever humans want. So they kind of break this idea. So they wanna have the same rights. So that's why this question. And as I said, like we have other movies, which we could talk about that like in another episode, because it's kind of nice to see. And not nice, nice is not the right word, but it is interesting to see how, as you said, like art or life imitates art somehow.
Yeah, and I think the moment we create intelligence or another life form, let's say, that it's thinking by itself and learning, they should have the same rights, right? Even though that doesn't necessarily happen today with us and animals, right? We assume that, like, a dolphin doesn't have like a very evolved brain that can speak in a complex, but we don't know that. And then we, even though we treat them as like an animal, we put them in zoos
Inferiors.
as inferior as us. And the moment we created something intelligent that can exponentially get better than us, like for example AGI, uh, we're gonna lose control, and then maybe they will treat us the way we treat animals today, right? These days. So it can go very philosophical and very, you can talk about ethics as well.
Yeah. So, is it ethical to create machines that can suffer? That's a good question. We're talking about ethics.
I think I don't know if it's if they don't feel anything or if they don't suffer somehow, then they can't, in my perspective, they can't appreciate or they can't understand then the opposite of suffering, which is, I don't know, joy or pleasure, right?
The things that when I recall about this is not there are some studies that they are just trying to talk about with the AI, with those LLM systems, and then somehow it kind of the researchers they just say like, we're gonna raise you, and then they are seeing the thinking behind the LLMs
They,
decisions, decision
like
making.
erase you, right? So what?
Yeah,
Ah,
raise you. So why did I
I
say?
understand. Raise you. Just put you higher.
No, no, erased, like to delete, the LLM. And then in the thinking, with the deep thinking, what is behind the LLM decisions, it was kind of trying to save itself. So it kind of developed a way of copying itself in a different server, and then it says like to the researchers, okay, it's fine, and we're gonna be deleted. But in another hand, like in the deep, they were copying itself in a different server, trying to survive. Let's say. So this already happening like in a small level, let's say, of intelligence, or in a software that we assume that is just copying and mimicking emotions. So can you imagine if you give a little bit more than that, like a little bit more capability to these machines? Maybe they are not like replicating human emotions, but they will create their own, somehow.
Yeah, but I think that that's the question about life. It's life in general, like that you. The purpose of life is to continue existing, right? So you can replicate you can just procreate and then maintain life, and that's for everything. And the moment we are creating something, it's creating or mirroring us, right? And that's kind of like how it is, the survivalist instinct of humans, right? I think that's,
Yeah,
whether it's not rational or, I don't know, irrational, maybe it's in their programming is, has that built in somehow, right? So it's, yeah, it's crazy that they're trying to survive, right?
yeah. So does free will exist? Talking about this in humans or machines, For example, in the game, you have this deviants, so they deviate their programming, so they like change their codes. Let's say they break the barriers. And are we doing the same thing, like when we reject social norms, or even when we became conscious? There in the history of humanity, we don't know the point where we break through. Let's say when we were animals, and then we become conscious. So where is this breakthrough? Are they doing the same, or are they just replicating it?
I don't know,
Such a philosophical
but I
question.
don't know.
So the game has like 100 different finals, and do you remember which one did you ended up like getting?
I can't remember. I think it was, I think it was a victory for the robot revolution. So they got their rights, but I don't know if that's the common final or the common ending, or if there's one that they don't succeed and then they just get banned, or there becomes a war. I can't remember.
So during the game, kind of you can get killed in different ways, and all the characters they can have like this ending, you know. So if you have that, then the robots like lose the revolution.
Mm.
But somehow, but this is a one specific ending, I think. But for example, for me, you have some decisions that you can make. For example, Connor, there is the least robot that will deviate because it's kind of a programming and having like a lot of information from the company that creates create the robots, you know. So it's you always reflect, okay, should I follow the orders of the company or should I deviate, you know? So for me it was like kind of following the company instructions. So Connor didn't deviate from it.
Ah,
So
okay.
it kind of becomes the villain of the game, you know, in the end.
Oh, interesting.
This is a major spoiler. Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
And then
for me, I think Conan deviated, so we broke
yeah,
protocol and then joined the Marcus Revolution.
yeah, for me it was kind of hard, but I was trying to like kind of following what looked like right, you know, in the context of the game. Even though it would be better if all of them deviate. And then it was funny because you can make some protests with Marcus, where you can be like kind of a pacific or you can be super violent. And I was trying to follow the Pacific range, but it's such a line, you know, such a small line that you can just cross and then they kind of break through a revolution that is super violent. That I kind of lost control of these things, you know. So I kind of become violent. So the population wasn't supporting the robots, you know, in this. So in the end, it was a fight between humans and the robots, and then I kind of conquer in the end the true force, you know. So the robots response were violent in the end, which is interesting because depending on the decisions, you can be super pacifist, and then everything kind of settles, you know, in the best ending. So if you haven't played and you wanna just see the finals, you can find the endings all over the YouTube. But I would definitely recommend for people to try, you know, because this tree of decisions are super interesting, and then you can play like more than one time, and then you have different pathways to follow, you know. So this is pretty much interesting.
Yeah, I think the game has 10 hours in total, and I think you can find somebody play on YouTube the whole 10 hours if you don't want to play the game. But I also encourage people to play if they. It's a really interesting story, and even though the game is like 7 years old, it's quite that it's addressing a lot of the stuff that we're seeing more or less, and then we might see it in the future when I do believe that we're gonna see and we're gonna coexist with humanoid robots. They might be very different from us in a sense that they are gonna have the same physical structure, but maybe they're gonna have a screen. They don't think they're gonna have a face, but we're gonna interact with them as almost as we interact with other humans, and that can get confusing very quickly, right? Because depending on the relationship you have with that robot, maybe if it's inside your house and then it's helping you with the chores, like it it might become more and more human, your relationship with
Yeah,
that. So that's where, okay, what, how about, do we know their side as well? How, it's really interesting. It's I think it's going to be a huge anthropological test for
experiment.
humanity to do this.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel that at some point they're gonna try to humanize the robots. I mean, like the face, you know, eyes and stuff like that. Because if you do that, you know, if you do this kind of humanoids robots, you know, like with the face and then the skin and everything, kind of similar to humans, it kind of it's easier for people to accept it in the society, you know. So, for example, an old person that is kind of against it, if it looks like a person, it might be easier for them to accept that there's a robot in the same environment as the person.
I don't know if it's just the appearances or if it is just a behavior, right? Because if it talks like you, acts like you, but even though it doesn't look like you, at some point it's gonna become. It depends on how much you interact with them. Sometimes, if you're talking to ChatGPT, it's almost easy to forget that it's a LLM or it's a artificial intelligence that you're talking about because it, depending on how the conversation goes, is it can feel a bit natural. I mean, not necessarily with ChatGPT because it tends to be a bit too much, but there are some voice AIs out there that are really hard to tell uh, by the way they speak that they are not real.
There's a study talking about if you are nice with the AI, the LLMs, they give you better results. So if you, in a way or another, it is kind of tricking you to be nice, with the AI, even though they're not humans, And then at the same time, there's someone asked Sam Altman, how much did they lose only for saying thank you and being like nice in the end of the conversations. And then he said like, yeah, we spend millions of dollars just for people to say like, thank you, ChatGPT, for your answer and stuff like that. So it is a bit tricky, It's somehow like how the things are working.
I think we need to protect ourselves. They're gonna remember when they start like dominating the world that whoever said thank you.
Of course, of course.
No, I read that, but I honestly don't think that it matters. I think we need to remember that when we talk to these things, it should be the same as when we talk to other people, and then we try to be polite with other people. So we should do the same. Otherwise, we're gonna talk to them so much that we're gonna forget how it is to be polite, right? So I think you shouldn't change the way you behave, and they should handle that uh, extra cost. It's not that they're complaining that people are saying. On actually, I think Sam Altman said that you shouldn't stop treating AI well because that also affects the response, right? They tend to be polite back to you as well. So, and you want to have that kind of polite conversation. So I wouldn't change the way.
But in the other hand, like if you think about if you use Photoshop, you don't need to be polite with Photoshop, just use the tool. So what I'm saying is like for different softwares and programs, you kind of don't do the same as LLMs because it's like a human language. That there's mimicking in that tool.
But
So you don't ask like,
you don't talk to Photoshop, right? You just write to it.
yeah, but you can complain if something is not working well. They say, this fucking software is not helping me, or anything like. So does it make you less? You know what I mean? Like for me, it is still a tool, of course. I never disrespect the tool, but somehow for me it's like I don't need to say thank you or I don't need to. Sometimes I'm pretty straightforward because I'm like on rush, so I don't feel the need of saying like, "Hey, ChatGPT, please do that for me," stuff like that. Just say like, "I want to review this or do that,"
Yeah,
just the way I do it.
you should be straightforward, right? So it's
Yeah,
still. I agree. It's still a tool. I think we're
yeah,
reaching up the end of our episode, but like, how is there anything
yeah.
else you like to add about the game?
I would recommend to people to play this game. I had played like not long ago, like 2 weeks ago. I just like finished the game, and then for me it was a great experience. That's why. I had the idea to make an episode about it, and then Daniel was already recommending me the game for a while. So it was really really good to have this experience. The story is really nice. You know, you get really into the characters, and you get involved with the revolution of the robots. You know, so I do recommend people to try it, even though if you don't need to be an expert on games, because this game is not about like how you are skilled and controlling the characters. It's more about a decision making um, game, you know. So you don't need to be skilled with video games to play it well, you know.
Yeah, it's story driven. So basically, it has a story to tell, and then you have to take decisions on which way to go. If you have to shoot somebody, if you have to jump somewhere, run. So it's even though you have a time to press a button, it's pretty easy to play. And I also recommend. I think it's a great game, and that's why we're talking about it, because it's also very you know contemporary. Like we're living through this the beginnings of the what can possibly lead to something like this game story. So yeah, play it. It's fun. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It's free and helps us a lot. This way, it can help us also reach new listeners. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date on our latest episodes. If you have any questions for us, reach out to us at hello@humanaixp.com or connect with us on Instagram. Thanks for listening. See you next week.